Hey everyone, Phil from 3DP UK Tech Channel here. Today's video is about the Creality Ender 3 V3 Plus. In a minute you'll see the unboxing and the build of this particular machine, and you'll also see the prints I've done over here. I've done some time lapses, you'll see that at the end of the video, but as you can see, some of the quality of the prints that I've received from this is pretty spectacular. I've had no issues in terms of the actual quality, and as you can see from this T-Rex model, so this is scaled up to about 150%, and then I've done a miniature version of that at about 50%. So as you can see, both done on this. So this was done in a grey filament and this was done in a marble filament, so both of those come out pretty spectacular. I also done some articulated prints, as you can see, from dragons and stuff like that. I also thought I'd give it a go and try some wood filament. Now I did put this in a dryer prior to use and I did have a bit of an issue, but that was because of the filament rather than the printer, and as you can see it's done a pretty good job. So there was also some prints on there. You had the benchy, so I don't like to do it in the filaments that are supplied because it kind of doesn't really show. Now the color discoloration of it is actually the filament, because it's a dual color filament. Not really sure why it come out quite like that, but the actual quality is pretty good. That was a benchy that was done in 14 minutes, so pretty quick. There's also some functional prints on the printer itself. So this is a phone holder, as you can see, straight out off the memory card. That come out really well. So I thought I'd test out some of those prints. Now there's also a calibration, which you can see here, once again done in grey, and you can see that that's come out really well. The details are all in there and I don't see any issues. And then you've got the slots, so over there's the actual connections. I've already tested out that and it's come out pretty good. What else do we have? So the price point of this at the moment in the UK, we're looking at about £460. The actual specs of this, so on the screen now over here you'll see just the spec sheet, but just quickly running over it. So it's a 300 by 300 on the X and Y. It's 330 on the Z. It's also a Y-axis dual motor as well. You'll notice with the Plus there are support rods, which you'll see in the video in a minute in the unboxing and build. It's a Core XY setup, so much like the K1. What else have we got? It's a tri-metal nozzle, so it's a quick setup and you can release it. We've got a 2-port cooling fan on the back and on the front, so to really improve the cooling of the prints. This particular printer, the Plus, is 58% bigger than the traditional V3 and part of the Ender 3 series. This is a much better size, in my opinion, to do these sort of bigger models and to get the best out of your printer. The overall footprint of the actual printer itself in its traditional setup with the side spool, you're looking at about 410 and 445 on the X and Y, and then on the Z it's 577, so that's kind of the footprint that you're going to need. It's got 2 tension belts and they are fully automated in terms of tensioning, so that's pretty good on that. Like I said earlier, there's support rods, help with Z-wobble, so that kind of reduces that. It also, the gantry and the base is of a DC12 aluminium alloy. So as you can see and hear, nice and solid, very heavy as well. So overall that's kind of just an overview of the specs. Once again, in the UK it's about £450, but with some deals that are coming up. Overall, as you will see in a minute with the build and the actual unboxing, really easy to put together, just a couple of bolts, a couple of connections, and away you go. Now the overall setup in terms of the firmware, it had the up-to-date firmware for me, so I didn't need to do that. But what I have seen in previous unboxings of other users is that they found that they did the calibration, then it asked for a firmware, and then you have to recalibrate. So you're looking at nearly half an hour, because the calibration side of it takes about 15 minutes. But my overall experience has been really, really, really great. And as you can see, some of the prints that I've done, some of them that I've sliced myself using Creality slicer. Now I have reached out to Creality because there are some issues with the Creality 5.0. Even with the new version of that, I found that the mouse isn't quite connecting up with what the screen is showing to where the mouse is, or the pointer, sorry. So it was making it really difficult to slice. So I did actually head over to Orca Slicer and I did all that on there. And then I just transferred it via the actual Creality slicer. I just selected the machine. Once again, Wi-Fi enabled. So you've got the side USB connection and the traditional K1 touchscreen. So nice and easy to use, but overall really sturdy and a great printer from what I can see already. And as you can see from the prints. So that's the initial thoughts of it. Now we're going to head over to the unboxing and the build. Stay on the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel because I will be bringing you some more content on both this and some other products that I've got coming very, very soon. Once again, thank you to Creality for sending me this printer to review. Creality right now are bringing us lots of printers that I deem as really special, especially the K2 Plus that everybody would have seen is now on the sales at the moment. I believe it's on the 20% off. I'm not sure if at this point when you're watching this video that they've all sold out. And I also hear from the Creality team that they're going to be releasing this out in October for general sales, so it'll be at full price, so there won't be any more of the discounts. Once again, the Creality Ender 3 V3 Plus with the support rods, 330 on the Z, 300 and 300 on the X and Y, so lovely size printer. And as I've showed you earlier, this T-Rex model and the details are absolutely fabulous. No issues with that. That was a 13-hour print in total. So the actual upper and lower jaw of the skull, that took about 12 hours. And then obviously the stand and that. And this was from STL Flick, so head over to them as well. Beautiful print. And then the articulated, once again, just quickly showing you. Great prints on that. No issues with stringing or anything like that, but obviously that's filament related rather than the printer. There's certain filaments that you will need to slow the printer down for because it is extremely fast. Now it's quoted as being able to go 600 MMS, but I would say 300 is your best for quality. And it's 20,000, I believe, on the acceleration, so extremely fast. Solid frame, great build. Head over now, stay with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay with us and watch the unboxing and build of this. Okay, a quick word from today's video sponsor, pcbway.com. As you can see from the website, it's really easy to use. They have an instant quote system. They do PC board prototyping, PCB assembly, rigid flex. They also do 3D printing services and CNC services. So if you click on each of those different sections, they will take you into like a quote system where you can select exactly your requirements. They deliver worldwide and they have instant payments. They're well respected within the prototyping community. pcbway.com, today's video sponsor. Thank you to pcbway.com. Okay, so here we have the Creality Ender 3 V3 Plus box. Always pretty well packaged. I always find that Creality send their stuff well packaged. And so as we open it up, you'll see it has a foam cover. Just remove that, put that to a side. And what we'll do is we'll take out the first pack, which is the instructions. Quite a detailed instructions manual with various languages, English being at the very front and then going through to Chinese, etc. You get your service card and then your obligatory stickers. Put them all to one side. We have some snips, which is pretty much get with every printer nowadays. A nozzle cleaner. So next out of the box is a bag of different things, such as we have the Allen keys and tools that you're going to require. We also have a nozzle wrench, which is always good to see. Next out of the box is some clamps and clips, and a USB that should have some information and slicer software. And then we have a tube of grease, which is always good for maintenance. So we're going to put that to one side. And this is the spool holder. Comes in 2 or 3 different pieces, so the usual traditional lock. And then you also have a spool holder that stops it from tangling, but I didn't actually use that in my testing. I found it was actually not that useful. The UK plugs connections for this country. Next out of the box is the 2 rods. Now these are clearly marked, as you can see in the picture right now, left and right. So that actually helps when putting them onto the machine itself. Next out of the box is the 4.3 touchscreen, which is pretty traditional with the K1, K1 Max and K1C. And it's the push fit connection. So let's put that all to one side. So we're going to take out the next bit of foam, and then you're going to have the gantry along with the nozzle and the actual main frame. So as we look over this, you can see that we got the dual rods. It has dual Z motors, which is always good to see. And the actual rear fans you can see here now. I quite like the fact that it's got a guide for the connections, and then you have the timing belts at the top. So this is a Core XY, so in not in your traditional sense, so it's pretty unique to the Ender V3 series. And then you've got the filament run out sensor and the direct extruder. So next out, we're going to take some more foam packaging, and then we're going to remove. So we get a 200-gram spool, but this is the white. I'm probably not going to use that. I like to do my testing with various colors other than white. It doesn't really show it up that very well. Quite a lot of foam to keep this all sturdy, which is always really good to see, because obviously in transit can get damaged. So we're going to take the main frame out. Now there's quite a weight to that, which is obviously good. It's going to keep it stable. All the wiring's pretty clearly labelled, and then you've got the PEI flexi build plate, which is good, and then the notches, which is pretty traditional with most Creality products now, and that just locks into place. You'll find some foam underneath the bed itself, so just remember to remove that. And then we've got the thicker linear rods, so not quite the same size as the other one, so it's a lot thicker. So, and then you've got the screen mount. I noticed that when I put that together, the actual screen, you do need to ensure that that's pushed right down, because it can clash with the bed. And also don't leave your finger there. Then you've got the power ratings for your country. Make sure you check that before you switch it on. And then at the rear, you have the power connections and the on and off switch. You also have the motors at the bottom, and plenty of air gaps as well, which I really like about the frame. So it's going to keep that quite cool. And then you've got obviously your protected wiring connections for the bed. And then at the front, you can see that basically the ratings and stuff like that. So I believe that's everything out of the box now. Always double check, you're never quite sure. Okay, so it's all laid out now. So that's everything out of the box. So over here you've got the bed and the lower part of the actual printer, the thicker rods and the PEI sheet. I do like that. Then the actual connections for the frame basically rests in there. You've got the instructions manual and service, some spool holder, which like I said I'm not going to use, and then the upper frame with the nozzle, the support rods and the filament holder. I'm not sure if I'm going to use the bottom part, which I didn't. And then you've got the various tools and clamps and bits like that, and the power cable. So step 1, so it gives you the parts list, so always double check that you've got everything to hand before you start, because obviously that could affect it if you have to send it back, which hopefully you shouldn't have to. And it gives a detailed accessory list as well. Okay, so the next page is telling me that I need to connect up the spool holder. But to be honest with you, I'm probably going to do that last because I see that it's just a push fit. So I'm going to go on to the next step, which is to connect the upper frame to the lower frame. Now, there's various ways that you can do this. They've got notches in there, so it should be nice and easy. You can lay it on its side if you want to. But as I started doing it, I noticed that, you could actually just screw it from the, you've got 2 bolts that go in from the front and then 2 at the bottom. What I suggest you do is just do it actually sitting up. It sits quite nicely in the notch. And as you notice, I'm sort of having a little think about it. The documentation doesn't really give any advice. So what I do is I actually put the connection in while it's upright, as in the sort of the traditional 3D printing sort of layout. So you just lay it on, it sits nice and carefully into there, and you put 2 bolts on one side, 2 bolts on the other, and straight away that's already in place. Obviously you then have to do the 2 at the bottom and 2 on the other side. So there's 4 bolts on either side altogether. So let's go through that pretty quick now. Okay, so that's the upper frame connected with the 4 bolts either side. So the spool holder, you'll see that there's 2 notches on the side. It literally just push fits on and it just locks into place. Now, like I said earlier, it does come with a detangle sort of solution for the spool, but I'm not overly keen on that. Now the support rods, as we can see, they're clearly marked L and L. You just match it up and just put them together. Now the bolts are in there in the packaging, so once again, you'll need one for the upper part of the frame and then the lower part of the gantry to connect up to the main board. And you can see, just tighten it up nice and easily like that. You don't have to sort of move the rods to adjust them, I found. And then just connect up the bottom half. And you do that for both sides, so nice and easy. And I think we'll scoot through that bit and go to the next step. Okay, so everything's connected in terms of the support rods, which is good. We got the timing belts along the upper and lower frame, so in the core XY sort of motion. And as you can see, nice and sturdy. So I do like that. I think we should get some good prints from this. So the next step is connect up the screen. Now on the back, you'll see the connection for the actual push fit. And on the front, you'll see some wording. It's basically just giving you a warning to double check your power ratings, because obviously that's pretty important depending on what country you're in. And then just peel off the sticker at the front and then peel off the screen cover when you're ready. And then this just push fits. It's exactly like the K1 if you have that, or the K1 Max or the K1C. And once you hear it click, it's pretty much ready. And then you just push it into the 2 little notches. Like I said earlier, make sure that's fully down. Push it until it clicks, because the actual bed does move backwards and forwards and it can clash with it. It's probably going to do some serious damage. And then, like I said earlier, the information about the power rating, just double check that that's suitable for your country. Okay, so we're just going to turn it to its side. On the left hand side, just in front of the frame, you'll notice in there is where the ratings is. Now it is covered by a sticker. You need to remove the sticker. We've got rubber feet, so that should help with dampening. And then you've got the motor with the connections, which we're going to do in a second. So we're going to connect up all the connections in a minute. Like I said, you're going to need to do the power rating and at the back. So the first step is to put the connection for the stepper motor. So we're going to do that. Nice and easy, just push fits. So let's do that now. And then once we've done the stepper motor connection, we're going to do the limit switch. So you're You've got like a connection in there. It's quite fiddly, quite small, so just make sure you're not forcing it because these can snap. And then and literally just pushes together like so. Nice and easy. There we go. So that's all connected on that side. Just make sure everything's clear of the frame, nothing can get caught and damaged. So let's turn the actual printer to the opposite side now, and we're going to do the motor on the opposite side. Once again, nice and easy. Push fit in. Before on the other side, it literally just connects up. Like so. It's clearly labelled. You can see the little yellow stickers on there. It just clearly marks where everything goes. To be honest with you, when you first pull the wiring out, it's fairly obvious. So when you're undoing this main wire, now this is the wire that leads to the printer head. You've got these little clips on the frame. So when you're putting the support rods, make sure that this little clip is on the outside. And these are actually important. Now each of these labels that are on the wire is about where the location of where you need to be clipping it to it. I tried to remove the actual sticker, but it didn't actually need to be removed, so I kind of stopped halfway through trying to remove that. It was a bit of a fruitless effort, to be honest with you. These are actually really important. It kind of tells you where they go, which kind of defeated the object of me trying to remove it. Now the next step is the filament run out sensor, so just click that in, nice and easy, just pushes in. And then the other part now is going to be for the main nozzle itself, so for the print head. So what you want to make sure is it's at the back end, so it's not getting tangled up. Make sure it's nice and free. And we're just going to push that into the actual connection. What you're going to need to do is hold the head just to push it, because the actual frame does move. And then inside the packaging, you do actually have a cover. Now, you'll notice that I actually forgot to put a cable tie through the loop, and just put the actual connection or the tidy connection on there. I found it just kept popping off. Now, this was just me not reading the instructions. The instructions actually clearly mark that. So yeah, take your time. Make sure you use a cable tie on that. Do that first, snip it, and then put the clip on. The next in the box, you'll notice there's 3 or 4 of these little clips. Now, for the Bowden tube, just remove it from the frame. It's tucked away nicely. What you want to do is actually push those through. Now, I actually connected it to the extruder, only to realize that these clips need to be pushed through the actual Bowden tube. So as you'll see, I kind of need to remove that. Once again, didn't read the instructions and just went ahead and tried to cowboy it, which is not always a good thing to do. Now these just slot in. Now there is 3 or 4 of those, I believe. And as you'll see on the cable below, the little black labels, like tabs, these are where each of those need to be located. It's kind of a guide as to help you where the Bowden tube needs to go onto the wire connections. Now these are very important, so kind of follow the guide. Okay, so that's everything completed. As you can see, what we're going to do now is connect up the power cable and turn on the printer. You'll notice that the logo screen clicks up and then it asks you what language. So obviously for myself, it's English. It'll ask you about privacy policies. You'll have to tick the box and just press next. And then it's going to search out for your Wi-Fi network. So what I'm going to do is connect it up to my Wi-Fi, and now that's connected. And then obviously you need to choose your time zone, so just select that. Okay, so now we've selected our time zone. The next step is binding it to cloud. So you can scan that QR code and it takes it in and joins it up to your account. But we'll do that a bit later. The next step is going to perform some self-checks. So it will do a number of different steps, as you can see from this extensive list. And what it'll do is it will carry out some checks now, and it'll basically do some resonance tests, some bed leveling, and it'll do a mesh level, and basically get the printer ready to use. So the Z home for that is actually at the top of the printer, so it'll always home at the top. Okay, so now that it's homed at the top, it's now going to do a bed level. So obviously I'm going to bypass that because it takes about 15 minutes. And like I said earlier on in the video, sometimes this isn't actually done at the very beginning. And you have to redo the firmware, and then you have to do all the self-test again. So as it's homing, it's basically going to carry out a calibration. It'd be best not to touch the machine while it's doing these steps. Okay, so now that the tests have been completed, let's have a little look through the screen. So it's the traditional K1 layout, nice and easy to use. So you've got all your models on there, so you can use USB and save it to the hard drive. Then you've got all your different settings, such as firmware updates and stuff like that. And basically just an up-to-date screen telling you all of your details. So what we want to do is also check out the current temperatures, so that's the hot end and the bed temperature. Then you've got all your axes, so you can press home on that and it'll move everything back to its home position. You can also do the extrude and remove a filament, and then it just gives you a guide on your fans on this particular setting. The next step is obviously all of your models. So there are some pre-sliced models on there. We're going to carry out a benchy, as it seems to be the standard for testing out. It's a 14-minute benchy. Once again, I'm going to use my own filament for that and not the one that was supplied, because I feel like it's easier. So we're going to put the USB in. It's pretty much got all the same information on there that's already saved to the actual printer hard drive, but just for testing purposes, we'll use the USB key. Now that I've added that, it's loading up all the files and you will see that on the screen. But once again, this is just a mirror version of what was already saved onto the actual printer hard drive. So it's not too much of an issue. Okay, so we're going to extrude some filament now, but once again, I'm not going to use the Creality supplied filament, which is white. We're going to use this Airy One dual color filament. I kind of feel like it uses a filament that kind of showcases the prints, which is kind of what you want. You don't want to sort of give this false impression, and white does. So what you want to do is go to the extrude screen and press extrude, and then we're going to snip the filament at a 45-degree angle. That just helps it go through the actual filament sensor. Now the filament sensor is to the right of this machine. We're going to put it onto the filament holder and then run it up through into the filament sensor, and then all through the Bowden tube and straight into the extruder itself. Okay, so now we've extruded the filament, let's stick the benchy on, and here we go. So I've actually ticked it to say do a calibration at the beginning first, so that's what it's going to do. So now you're going to see a time lapse of this benchy, 14-minute benchy. Okay, overall it's come out really well. The actual dual color filament has kind of made it look a bit strange. Not sure why it's done that. I think it's just the sheer size. But as you can see, there's no ringing. There's no under extrusion. Everything looks pretty good, apart from the fact that the filament looks slightly off. But overall, pretty good. Okay, so I've carried out some numerous tests with the models that were on the display. So this is the phone stand. That's come out really well, and then a cinder wing dragon that came out really well on this. I didn't utilize the whole bed because this was just something I thought I'd slice, and I wanted to print at that size, which is my standard size of printing these dragons. The time lapse is pretty good. It come out really well. So this was an 8.5 hour print at 0.2 layer height and 15% infill. But overall it come out really well, which you see at the beginning of the video. Okay, so my next model, I used wood filament for this, but I did have to use a filament dryer because the actual filament was a bit wet. Came out, and I failed at the first step, but this one came out well. Next one is the robot, which was an 8.5 hour print. It came out excellent. And this was an articulated robot. And then the next one is actually the test that's put onto the actual printer firmware. So that came out really well. This one was my favorite of all. So this was the enlarged 150% T-Rex skull. This was a 12 to 15 hour print in total, and then obviously I printed the stand, and you see at the beginning of the video what it looks like and how it actually come out. Okay, so that's the end of the video. So overall, my thoughts on the Creality Ender 3 V3 Plus is nothing short of pretty amazing. I have had no issues with the setup, nice and easy. The overall use of the machine was excellent. The quality of prints that I've received through the slicer program. As I said earlier on in the video, there was some issues with the slicer program, but that seems to be a common thing. And as you can see from the picture, these are all the prints that I actually carried out on this printer. Overall, really successful, no failed prints apart from my own issues with filament, which was the wood bamboo type wood. But that was because I've not used it for at least a year and it had absorbed some moisture. But overall, the Creality Ender 3 V3 Plus has been amazing. Thanks again to Creality for sending this to me to review, and thanks to pcbway for sponsoring today's video. If you haven't already done so, please do make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. All of your subscriptions really help with me to focus on new projects and further reviews. So once again, thank you for checking out this video today, and that was the Creality Ender 3 V3 Plus. Take care everyone, that's Phil from 3DP UK Tech Channel, and I hope you all take care.